Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of One Piece, Season 1, Episode 7. So, the episode opens up immediately where it left off in the last one, as these episodes typically do, and so Luffy just saved the mayor's life because he was gonna go attack Buggy without thinking. And Buggy is just upset to see that Luffy is somehow alive. Which makes a little bit of sense because they are kind of enemies at this point. And Nami just wants the treasure in the map so she can go find all the treasure she wants. And the mayor tries to go attack Buggy again, but Luffy knocks him out so he's out of the way and is unconscious, so he isn't a threat to himself. Which Zoro approves of, and Nami's upset because there were other ways Luffy could have done that but didn't. And afterward, Buggy tries to launch one of his special Buggy balls at Luffy, but Luffy deflects it by inflating his gut with air and just bouncing it back at him, which blows them all up, leaving most of Buggy's crew unconscious, except for a couple. Moji, who's still alive, and a new character, Kabaji, who we haven't seen up until this point, who is the swordsman of the group. And he and Zoro get into a fight with one another. Kabaji has a unicycle and is showing off a bunch of really flashy techniques. And Zoro is able to hold his own, barely, but for the first half of the fight, Kabaji is just abusing the fact that Zoro's injured and just kicks him in his wound to knock the wind out of him. And at one point, Zoro has enough and decides to stop letting his handicap be a handicap, and is probably the most badass moment of this first season so far. I haven't seen the rest of it. And then they get into a fight. They start fighting, and Nami just leaves because she's disgusted and had enough, and decides to go loot the treasure and be on her way. And she's kind of upset, but she's kind of upset that they're killing each other, and says that if she and Luffy ever meet again, that she'll happily team up with them. But until then, she will part ways. So she was only part of the crew temporarily, which I expected. She didn't really want to be a pirate to begin with. She was kind of roped into it a little bit, but Moji also explains during the scene that Luffy has devil fruit powers and that Buggy should be careful, which is why he sends the swordsman after him in the first place. But it doesn't work. And Kaboji, after having enough with toying around with old Kaboji, Zoro decides enough is enough, gets tired of his cheap-ass techniques and all of his prodding and mocking and all that, and basically kills him in one fell swoop. Because he was just playing, because for the most part Kaboji was playing offensive and wasn't really doing all that much to try and fight. He was just kind of showing off. But then once he actually tried to take a swing, he got mowed down single-handedly. So, yeah. Meanwhile, Nami has found the treasure room. She lit a torch with a rock and is caught by a guard, but the guard is drunk, which she uses to her advantage, and uses her assets, we'll call them, to seduce the poor man, and then beats him in the face with her bow staff. And takes all the puts all the treasure in the sack and leaves, where she then sees that Zoro has defeated the swordsman and has in fact passed out because he's so tired and takes a nap. So he's pretty much asleep for the rest of the episode. And then in this scene, Buggy reveals that he knows Shanks, and it's implied that they have a bit of a grudge in the scene, and he and Luffy have a scuffle a little bit. Buggy launches his leg which has a knife on the end of the shoe. He launches his leg into a circle and throws it at Luffy, and Luffy jumps up into the air, dodges it, and then dodges again when Buggy starts chucking knives at him by grabbing the pole and pulling himself over. Then tries to launch an attack directly on him, but Buggy detaches his head and Luffy just goes flying without actually hitting him. And then Buggy launches his fist at Luffy's face with knives in hand, I might add, and attacks him. But Luffy catches the fist, and then the fist separates into various joints and goes through, scratches up Luffy's face a little bit. He'll be fine because he's a rubber person and he'll heal a little bit. But what really sets Luffy off is that Shanks' hat got damaged, and that's what upsets Luffy. And Buggy uses this as an opening and swipes the hat with his fist by throwing a knife at Luffy and then sending his fist in with knives in hand and just impaling it and sending it flying. And there's a bit of a flashback sequence here. And Luffy then takes it. Then upon realizing that it's Shanks' hat because Luffy told him, he drops it and stomps on it and is like, "Huh, that's why it's so familiar." And explains that he and Buggy Buggy and Shanks were comrades, and attacks and that they were very close, kind of, sort of, but that they, for whatever reason, they had a falling out, which is explained in the next episode, but not this one, because it cuts off before Buggy can actually explain it, which is how these episodic tales work. Also, I should mention that we're early in the season, but that it's kind of 65% done. So we have a bit to go for this entire series. But after hearing that, I'm sidetracking. But after hearing that Buggy and Shanks were comrades, despite being two completely different people, having two completely different personalities, one values items and is a good person, the other values actual treasure and is very greedy and very self-centered. And upon hearing this, Luffy just goes into a fury and tackles Buggy. Buggy attacks his head trying to dodge, but his body still keeps going. And for a moment, his head is just floating around going, "Hello, I'm Buggy," and then reattaches. And Luffy starts pulling on yanking on his face, honking his nose, and demanding a bunch of answers. And then Buggy actually does reveal that he does in fact have a grudge against old Shanksy boy. Cause I mean, Shanks is a lovable character. I like him, you like him, we all like him. But for whatever reason, Buggy doesn't like him, and we're going to get that answer very soon in the next episode, which I am going to review for tomorrow. And you guys are going to watch it and give it a like and maybe subscribe, and it's going to be great. But right now, we are focusing on this episode. So this episode mainly showcases two different fights between two completely different types of power sets. First, there's the swordsman with no devil fruit powers, and it shows that Zoro is a pretty prominent fighter in this, but does in fact beat, and Luffy does in fact beat some Buggy, because he does tackle Buggy and take him out of the fight personally. Also, Buggy and Kabaji try to gang up on Zoro at one point while they're fighting and grab him, and Buggy tries to grab him by the ankles, but Luffy's like, "No, stay out of the fight. This isn't your fight. This is Zoro's fight. You and I will fight next, but right now, this is Zoro's fight. You stay out of it." And that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, I know pirates aren't supposed to play fair or any of that, but Buggy especially doesn't play fair, and neither do his pirates. And also, one of the funniest things in this episode is that Kabaji mainly survived because he used Moji's lion, but Moji's lion, I think his name was Richie. I don't think I mentioned that, but his lion is named Richie, and he used the lion as a shield. Kabaji used Richie as a shield, and Zoro and Buggy did that a little bit as well, having used two of his crew members as a shield, and they were knocked out, drops them on the floor, and they are kind of alive and well, and just watching this while pretending to be passed out. They're watching this entire exchange between Zoro and Kabaji, and then later Luffy and old Buggy, old clown nose, old creepy clown guy. But yeah, Nami also sees this entire scene and realizes she might have been a little bit too quick to judge Luffy. But it's fine. She does realize she's wrong here. She does come around in the next episode and actually does join. And I have the synopsis here, and it does say that for the next episode that Nami does officially join the crew for real this time, which is great. And it also does explain, and this episode is pretty good. I like it. I didn't really explain it all that well, but I like it. It explains why. It doesn't do much explaining, but it does do a lot of pitting two characters with similar fighting styles against one another and seeing who would win. And surprise, surprise, Luffy's team wins. And Nami is amazing in this episode as well, because she's just like, oh, I found treasure. Oh, I got caught. Oh, he's drunk. Oh, let's seduce him and smack him in the face. It's perfect. It's perfect. It fits her character, because she, especially in the later seasons, but I will not explain that now. I will explain that later when it actually comes up. But I did enjoy this episode. I'm just rambling for the sake of filling time, but I did like this episode, and I want to know if you guys have seen this episode of One Piece. What do you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comments down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Until then, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, hit that like and the subscribe button. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.